David Parker Ray was also known as the Toy Box Killer and was an American kidnapper, torturer, rapist, and suspected serial killer. Though no bodies were found, Ray was accused by his accomplices of killing several women and was suspected by the police to have murdered as many as 60 women from Arizona and New Mexico while living in Elephant Butte, approximately 7 miles north of Truth or Consequences. Ray soundproofed a semi-trailer, which he called his toy box, and equipped it with items used for sexual torture. He would kidnap between 5 and 6 women a year, holding each of them captive for around 3 to 4 months. During this period, he would sexually abuse his victims, sometimes involving his dog or his wife, who participated willingly in her husband's crimes. Sorry, give me a second. Trigger warning. We talk about bestiality, rape, murder, torture, and sexual assault. During this period, he would sexually abuse his victims, sometimes involving his dog or his wife, who participated willingly in her husband's crimes, and often torture them with surgical instruments. Then Ray would drug them with barbiturates in an attempt to erase their memories of what had happened before abandoning them by the side of the road. Ray was convicted of kidnapping and torture in 2001, for which he received a lengthy sentence, but he was never convicted of murder. He died of a heart attack about 1 year after his convictions in 2 cases, the second of which resulted in a plea deal. During his childhood, David Parker Ray and his younger sister Peggy lived with their disciplinarian grandfather. He was sporadically visited by his violent alcoholic father, who would supply him with magazines depicting sadomasochistic pornography. At Mountaineer High School in Mountaineer, New Mexico, he was bullied by his peers for shyness around girls. I don't know how you go from being this super shy kid to murdering women, but that would appear that is how this went, and that is sad. Ray's sexual fantasies of raping, torturing, and even murdering women developed during his teenage years. Around this time, his sister discovered his sadomasochistic drawings as well as pornographic photographs of bondage acts. After completing high school, Ray received an honorable, I don't know where I got homophobic out of that, received an honorable discharge from the United States Army, where his service included work as a general mechanic. I have yet to come across a serial killer that I have studied that has not somehow, in some way, participated in the Army or Armed Forces or Marines or Navy or whatever. I don't know what it is, but they seem to all come from that kind of background. And I've said this many times, I still don't understand how this happens. I don't know if, psychological checks are a new thing, but yeah, it's insane how many serial killers I researched that are American that have in some way, shape, or form been involved with the Army. Ray was divorced 4 times and had 2 children, including his accomplice, daughter Jessie Ray, born Glenda Jean Ray. Honestly, Jessie's a better name for her because from the sounds of what she's done, and you'll hear about, she was not Glenda the Good Witch of the North, that's for sure. Jessie had issues all her own, but they were, serious issues. Ray sexually tortured and presumably killed his victims using whips, chains, pulleys, strap clamps, leg spreader bars, surgical blades, electric shock machines, and saws. It is thought that he terrorized many women with these tools for many years with the help of accomplices, some of whom were alleged to have been implements, syringes, and detailed diagrams showing ways of inflicting pain. There was a homemade electrical generator, which was used for torture. I would be really concerned about using, a homemade generator, because, You would burn the whole place down, which, I mean, in this case, would not be a bad idea, considering you're using it to hurt people, but I'm just saying, like, don't try making a homemade generator at home. It's so not safe. A mirror was mounted in the ceiling above the obstetric, I don't know how to say that word, table to which he strapped his victims. Ray also put his victims in wooden contraptions that bent them over and immobilized them while he had his dogs and sometimes other friends rape them. He has been said to have wanted his victims to see everything he was doing to them. Ray often had audio tape recording of his voice played for his victims whenever they regained consciousness. And from what I understand, these tapes would be like them just torturing them. So it'd be like psychological warfare if he wasn't there when they woke up to, torture them, I guess. So it was more like a psychological warfare with the tapes than anything else.
Killing me, Smalls.
Sorry, my wife is at the heart doctor, so that is going to interrupt me, and I'm going to try not to let it interrupt too much, but she's at the heart doctor, and I am not able to go because I cannot walk and I cannot get around very easily, so I am going to answer her if she comes through. Cynthia Vigil was abducted from an Albuquerque parking lot by Ray and his girlfriend, Cynthia Hendy. She was taken to Elephant Butte, confined to the trailer, and tortured. After 3 days of captivity, Cynthia escaped from the trailer on March 22nd, 1999.
Killing me, Smalls.
To escape, she waited until Ray had gone to work and then unlocked her chains with the keys that Hendy had left on a nearby table. Hendy noticed Cynthia's attempt to escape and a fight ensued. During the struggle, Hendy broke a lamp on the survivor's head, but Cynthia unlocked her chains and stabbed Hendy in the neck with an ice pick. Cynthia fled wearing only an iron slave collar and padlocked chains. She ran down the road seeking help, which she got from a nearby homeowner who took her in, comforted her, and called the police. Her escape led officials to the trailer and instigated the capture of Ray and his accomplices. Police detained Ray and Hendy. Another victim, Angelica Montano, came forward with a similar story to Cynthia. She said she had been held captive by Ray after Hendy invited her to the house to pick up a cake mix. After being raped and tortured, Angela convinced the pair to release her along the highway. She was picked up by an off-duty law enforcement officer and told him what happened, but he did not believe her and left her at a bus stop. She also later called police about the incident, but there had been no follow-up. I'm going to take this minute to pause out, get a drink. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere, okay? Sorry, I'm still recovering from a cough, so I got to get a drink every now and then. But we're back. We are back. Police identified another victim, Kelly Garrett, also called Kelly Van Cleve, from a videotape which dated from 1996. Kelly was found alive in Colorado after police identified her from a tattoo on her ankle. She testified that she had gotten in a fight with her husband and decided to spend the night playing pool with friends. Ray's daughter, Jessie, who knew Kelly, took her to the Blue Water Saloon in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and may have drugged the beer she was drinking. She offered Kelly a ride home, but instead took Kelly to her father's house. This is why you can't trust women your own age either. Like, I just don't trust anybody, but I mean, like, his own daughter. That's so fucked up. Kelly said that she endured 2 days of torture before Ray drove her back to her home. Ray told her husband that he had found the woman incoherent on a beach. Her husband did not believe that she could not remember where she had been, and Kelly said she did not know what to tell the police, so she did not contact them. I would have just told them the truth. Something happened to me and I can't remember. But again, I'm not victim blaming, and I will never victim blame, and here is why. Because I've never been in that situation, so I cannot tell you what I would do. Or I mean, I can tell you what I think I would do, but I cannot tell you what I would actually do, or that any response to what you did or didn't do is right or wrong, because I've never been in that situation, so I wouldn't know. That's why I think it's very important for people to understand that victim blaming is not okay. If you have never been in that situation, you have no idea what you would do. You know, your fight or flight response takes over, and if you're drugged, it's even worse, because you may not be able to remember exactly what happened to you, and that can be very difficult when it comes to police and law enforcement, because they want to chalk it up as, oh, you got drunk and you made mistakes and you made choices that you shouldn't have made, and now you're accusing some man that you don't even know of rape, and blah blah blah. Yeah. So I cannot say definitively what I would have done in that situation, because I've never been in that situation, and I don't ever want to be in that situation. Her husband sued for divorce, and Kelly moved to Colorado. She was later interviewed on cold case files about her ordeal. You can find that, I believe, on either Hulu or Netflix, if you would like to see that specific episode. Sorry, eyeliner takes full concentration. So give me just a minute. We'll continue with our story. Okay, the FBI sent 100 agents to examine Ray's property and surroundings, but no identifiable human remains were found. To prevent women from reporting the assaults, Ray drugged them in an attempt to induce amnesia. I don't want you to remember shit, so I'm going to give you some major drugs that could potentially cause your brain to, like, explode, for lack of a better term. But we're going to do it anyway, because it is super important that since I didn't murder you, you can't tell people, the police, who I am. He made a tape recording of himself telling one woman that the drugs were sodium pentothal and phenobarbital. Now, if you've ever watched Law & Order SVU, or even Criminal Minds, or really anything that's like crime related, you know that phenobarbital is extremely dangerous and deadly. And if not administered correctly by the right people, it can cause, obviously, long-term issues. Which, I mean, obviously was the idea here. But the reality is, I think we all know that this guy fully did not know what he was doing when he made these drug cocktails. So I'd say that it's likely that it was not given to them correctly. Let's just be honest here. It was probably not administered correctly. While awaiting trial, Ray spoke to FBI profilers and said that he was fascinated by the kidnapping of Colleen Stan and other sexually motivated kidnappings. The FBI had spoken to Ray as early as 1989 in connection with his business manufacturing and selling bondage-related sexual devices. Other possible victims include Jesse Ray's former girlfriend, Jill Troya, who disappeared in 1995, and Billy Ray Bowers, who was found shot to death and floating in Elephant Butte Lake in 1989. I always want to say Butte because I feel like the E is silent, but I'm pretty sure it's Butte. If you live there or have ever been there and you know how they pronounce it, let me know if I'm saying it incorrectly. A judge ruled that the cases for crimes against Cynthia Vigil, Angelica Montano, and Kelly Garrett would be severed, meaning that Ray would be tried for each separately. Prosecutors said that this damaged their case, as each woman's story would otherwise have corroborated the others. But there's that whole prejudicial evidence type stuff that goes on with that. So, even though we don't like this guy, by law, they are required to give him a fair trial. The judge also ruled much of the evidence found in the trailer during the 1999 raid could not be admitted in the Garrett or Montano cases. The first trial for crimes against Kelly Garrett resulted in a mistrial after two jurors said they found her story unbelievable. Ray's defense was that the sex trailer was part of Ray's fantasy life and any sex was consensual. After a retrial, Ray was convicted on all 12 counts. Which, I mean, good. A week into his trial for crimes against Cynthia, Ray agreed to a plea bargain and was sentenced in 2001 to 224 years in prison for numerous offenses in the abduction and sexual torture of 3 young women at his Elephant Butte Lake home. The plea deal was in exchange of leniency for his daughter. Prosecutors said that the surviving victims had approved of the deal. I wonder if that's true, though. Like, did you find all surviving victims? Or, like, were there some that didn't come forward? Did the families of the deceased victims get a say? There's just so many things that I feel like they didn't do that they probably should have done. Like, to me, the families of the deceased should have had a say in any deal that was offered to this fucker. And that's just my personal opinion. What do I know? But, yeah. A week into his trial... Ray's daughter, Glenda Jean Jessie Ray, pled guilty to kidnapping. Honestly, because I think she was responsible for bringing him some of the people that were tortured and killed. She should have never been offered any kind of deal because she was just as fucking guilty as her dad, in my opinion. But that's an opinion, and I am not a law professional or a cop, and my opinion means shit to them. So there's that. She was sentenced to time served with an additional 5 years to be served on probation. She had served 2.5 years, and that's why this infuriates me. 2.5 years, but you brought him victims, and you paid no price for that. Not a single... There was no price paid for her participation, and her participation was just as bad as her dad's, in my opinion, because he wouldn't have had some of his victims had you not been responsible for getting them to him. And 2.5 years. That's all she got. 2.5 years for helping to end the lives of people. And to me, that's just wrong. You just don't do that. In 1999, Dennis Roy Yancey, 27, pled guilty to the 1997 murder of 22-year-old Marie Parker in Elephant Butte. Yancey confessed to helping Jessie Ray lure Marie into captivity in her father's trailer. Yancey said that Marie was tortured and that Ray forced him to strangle the woman to death. Marie's body was never found, and prosecutors said that no forensic evidence was found to tie Marie to the Rays. The murder was recorded by Ray on video. Yancey was also charged with kidnapping, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit a crime, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to 30 years. He was sentenced to 30 years for murder, which, right, you should have been, because you helped Jessie Ray and her father murder this woman. But the person who did all the luring and the kidnapping and the blah 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 and the bad shit, she got 3 years. Not even 3 years. She did 2.5 years. That was considered, what he did was considered worse than, luring these people incidentally to their deaths. And I mean, what he did was worse, but it killed me when I read this, that, and I researched this and I wrote this out. It just killed me that Jessie Ray essentially got away with murder. Nothing happened to her. She got away with it. And that is just wrong, in my opinion. Like, how do you live with yourself? And the thing is Jessie Ray is still alive. So she's still fucking out there. And do we know for sure that she hasn't, gone on murdering people? I'm just, allegedly, I'm not accusing her of anything because I don't personally know her, nor do I ever hope to know her. Of course I dropped that. Of course. Don't come for me, Jessie, if you're in here. Don't do that. That'd be bad. Anyway, Yancey was also charged with kidnapping, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit a crime, and tampering with evidence. He was then sentenced to 30 years. The Rays were not charged in Marie's murder. In 2010, Yancey was paroled after serving 11 years in prison, but the release was delayed by difficulties in negotiating a plan for residence. 3 months after his release in 2011, Yancey was charged with violating his parole. He was remanded to custody, where he remained until 2021, serving the rest of his original sentence. In 2000, Cynthia Hendy, an accomplice who testified against Ray, received a sentence of 36 years for her role in the crimes. She was scheduled to receive parole in 2017. She was released on July 15, 2019, after serving the 2 years of her parole in prison. $36 and she served 19 total. That's horrible. On May 28, 2002, Ray was taken to the Lea County Correctional Facility in Hobbs, New Mexico, to be questioned by state police. He died of a heart attack before the interrogation took place. Cynthia Vigil later founded Street Safe New Mexico, a volunteer harm reduction nonprofit that works with sex workers and other vulnerable people living on the street with Christine Barber. Which, I mean, more power to you. I'm so proud of you for taking something horrible that happened to you and turning it into something good. I am going to pause out. I'm going to get a drink. We will be right back while I straighten my hair, and I will open up this to Q&A. I'll be back, guys. Okay, we're back. I'm open to Q&A while I do my hair. Like I said, my wife is at the heart doctor. So, and I have physical therapy this afternoon. So I'm getting ready for that. Next week we are doing William Bonin, the Freeway Killer. I have debated taking a break. The William Bonin case is like really getting to me. All of his victims were relatively young. 90% of them were like under the age of 15. This is really hard for me as I have a kid that is 13. So it's just kind of taking its toll on me. So I have debated moving that one back and not doing one at all next week. Or doing that one next week and then taking a break for a week. I do have to take care of myself, and I realize that a lot of people don't understand the effect that this can have on you mentally, especially if you don't do it yourself. But it is cases that involve children, young children, always get to me more so than the ones that involve adults. I take them hard. I take them personally, because these are children that can't really fight back. They're scared. They don't know what's going to happen to them. And if they do know what's going to happen to them, then you know that their last minutes had to have been absolutely terrifying. And I struggle so much with this. So it is, some of it is just that it takes a toll on my mental health. I almost dropped it. It's okay. I don't see anybody asking any questions. But that is okay because we are now done and I have to go get dressed. That was today's look, was again blue topaz for December. And today's case was on Lawrence Bittaker. Was on David Parker Ray. And that was on the Toy Box Killer. So be sure to be here tomorrow. We will be doing a look for Ruby for July, and next week or the week after will be the case of the Freeway Killer William Bonin. I will be sure to keep you updated on what I decide to do, if I'm going to take the break and then do a case, or do the case and then take a break. But either way, there's definitely a break coming, but I will keep you updated on that. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Make good choices and be cautiously kind to others. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.